Rabbi Isai, welcome back to Yerushalmi Pesachim. We're holding at Yud Testament base towards the bottom. Now we're bringing a discussion about Chalas Taida. Okay, the Kazais of Matzah, you fulfill your duty, but Pesach, Mashkin. There should be no other liquids in it except water. If you have other liquids, it's not poor man's bread, it's rich man's bread. Right? Lechem Oini. The Bible includes wine, oil, date honey, milk. You can't use it for your matzah's mitzvah. And the Rambam learns these four mashkin enrichen the dough. Only these four seems to be a problem. Other Rishonim passed all types of liquids apart from water. Yerushalmi used the Lashon mashkin, any liquids. Of course, you know about matzah shira and so on, that the Bnei Ashkenaz don't have matzah shira, huh?
That's right.
Egg matzahs or fruit juice or apple juice, whatever. Rav Yirmiyah Omar lemitzvah tamat. Rav Yirmiyah said the mitzvah of eating matzah lechatchila. He said his words. Don't put these other liquids in as far as matzah's mitzvah, but you fulfill your duty. But the Eved you would fulfill. So then the lechatchila don't do it, but the Eved is okay. Rabbi Bar, he said lemitzvah tamat. Yeah, the din of Yerushalmi Levi was ideal. Rabbi Yehuda ben Pazi Amar le'ikuv tamat. He said no. If he has these liquids, b'diavad, you don't fulfill your duty of the mitzvah. Memil said Rabbi Bar, and also as much from the words Rabbi Bar, Amar, he said it's essential that you don't fulfill. So we're not talking about chometz here now. We're talking about you won't fulfill your mitzvah of Seder night, lechem aini. That's what we're referring to here. Now, even Bnei Ashkenaz, actually, who say matzah shira you shouldn't have, they allow children to have it. They allow sick people to have it. So it's not an issue of chometz at all. Yeah? Now you have the loaves of the Taida offering. If you make them to sell in the market, you fulfill your duty with chayv of matzah. Maybe you're going to tell me chalas Taida she'ein behen mashkin. You think there's no liquids in there? I mean, these things are full of oil. And yet the mission says you can fulfill your duty. So how can Yerushalmi ben Levi say that you mustn't have any other liquids in it? So you see, according to Rabbi Bar Chia, Rabbi Yerushalmi ben Levi was liikuva. If it was just lachatchila, there's no question. It could be that chalas taida b'diavad is okay. Rabbi Yosef comes along and answers the question of Rabbi Yerushalmi ben Levi. I'm Rabbi Yosef Taman with chalas taida. Revius, look, there's only a revius of oil in all these loaves. So it gets divided out. Revius with chalakis lekama chalas. Each challah only has a tiny bit of oil. So it's not considered matzah shira. Now that's all very well. The Gemara comes on and gives, it could be b'diavad, you can be yotze with matzah which has other liquids. But where was it learned you can fulfill your duty with matzah which has other liquids? We can learn it from a sense of the Brisa. Maybe you should fulfill your duty with eating achilas matzah on the first night of Pesach b'revicha, which is made from flour which was sort of scalded before baking in hot water. Tower Lomas, where it says, matzahs. You cannot fulfill your duty. It's got to be matzah, shimor, which needs guarding. They shouldn't ferment before it's baked. Yasazu, now when you've scalded it in hot water, shimor, that doesn't, it doesn't ferment, it doesn't rise. It's not going to reach chimutz. So you see, it's a problem. The whole problem is it doesn't need guarding, so it shouldn't ferment. Had it needed guarding, you could fulfill your duty, even though there is a share of oil. So you see, you can fulfill your duty, at least with the Eved, with matzah shira. Right? Now the one brings a raya, another raya, that you can fulfill your duty with matzah shira. We've learned, you can use seasoned matzah. It doesn't even taste of grain. But the contents, the ingredients must be made be grain. So maybe they wanted to say it's about mutubalas mashkin. It's seasoned with liquids, and therefore you see you can fulfill your duty with the Eved that leaves matzah shira. The says no. We're not talking about mutubalas with liquids. It's a dough mutubalas b'shum shemin, which goes we've got nuts or sesame. This sort of matzah you can fulfill your duty, even according to the view that you can't use matzah shira. Now, what's the source for this? You can fulfill your duty with matzah, which is got ingrained with sesame and nuts. Where do we see you can fulfill your duty with this sort of matzah? So the Gemara says, we learned in the Brisa, Yachal, I might think that the Torah says, Lechem Oini, She'ena Yotzei b'Pesach ela b'Pasad Ra. Maybe you can only fulfill your duty with a sort of ugly matzah made of flour, it's got bran in it, which is like poor man's bread. Menayin afilu matzah shlomo. You got to have nice fine flour. Can you make a matzah out of that? Talmud Lamed says b'tochalu. Yeah, rib matzah. You can. The yitul, the word matzah, is even matzah which is from very fine flour, and same thing that which has got sesame. If you can finish eating matzah lo lechem oini, what are we excluding? Parat lesusin. To exclude a matzah made from a flour which was again scalded in oil. Well, chalas hamasres, like a challah from a pan, that's matzah made from flour which has been scalded in a pan of boiling hot water. But our shisha and the big matzah is a very important one. With these ones was derech hashiva, very important way of eating it. That definitely was not achilas oini.
So why don't we use this as the right?
What?
Why don't we use this as the right kidneys?
What? Kidneys?
Why don't
There's no problem with kidneys.
Why don't the Ashkenazim say the Gemara clearly talks about Shimshon?
Yeah.
So
There's no problem with kidneys. Was much later on. Kidneys was in the 13th century. Yotzin, until then, no one heard of it. Yotzin with matzah ava. You can fulfill your duty with matzah even with matzah ava, which was a thick matzah ad tefach. It can be as thick as a tefach. We don't have to worry. Kelechem apanim, like the lechem panim of this migdash, which was that couldn't be chametz, and yet it was a tefach thick. Yotzin, you can fulfill your duty with matzah na, with matzah which is not totally baked. Now, so it's all very well. Obviously, it can't mean a dough. Obviously, you can't use a dough. So what is it that you can use? So it's got to be kadesh tiparis. It breaks up. But it doesn't become strands and strands. Matzah yeshana. Now that is a matzah you made from years ago, from last year, before Pesach. Now maybe you didn't look after it. So if you looked at the Beisham, you didn't make it necessarily for Seder, for Pesach. So if you looked at Beisham Beis Hillel, the same argument with Sukkah Yeshana. Just like Beisham said, you can't use a Sukkah Yeshana. You made a Sukkah at the beginning of the year for Sukkahs, which was nowhere near Sukkah's time. Without intention, it should be for Sukkahs. So you can't use Matzah Yeshana. According to Beis Hillel, Sukkah Yeshana is okay. Then Matzah Yeshana will be okay. Rabbi Yosef, this is Dira Kohi. Everyone will say it's a problem. Because if you made it months ago, you never made it for Pesach, you wouldn't have been careful to stop it rising, right? Therefore, we cannot rely on it. Yotzin bisrukin. You can fulfill your duty of matzah bisrukin with small matzahs. Whether they've got designs on them or not. Even though you shouldn't make them on Pesach, because we don't need spending too much time designing nice designs on a matzah, because meanwhile it's going to rise, right? But the Ebed, it's okay. Tani Amrav Yehuda, Shal Baitas Ben Zed is from Gamliel. He asked me, Chacham B'Yavne, Ma'olas Sirikim Sion B'Pesach. Can I make nice designs on Pesach? They said also, no. A woman will take ages to make them. Baitas said, well, I'm an expert. In Cain, if you're white, people will take a while. Yasa Isa, and you can make the designs bitzfus in like a form which will create the image in one go. It doesn't take very long. There's no worry of chashash, of chametz. Why is that forbidden? They said, look, people say, can you honestly say, Kol Haloshon asurin, that all designs are forbidden, but baitas, his special ones are permitted? Shrika baitas ben zed b'utarin, his ones are permitted because he's got a special form? No. Tani people said the advice we use srikin b'rekikin. You can make srikin, various designs with these very thin ones, but not with these bigger rolls, because they're thick. Again, they'll become chametz even in a short period of time. Halacha, hey, the following you fulfill your duty on Pesach. Now we don't really know what all of them are. Chazeres usually is the one we use for chasa, which is your lettuce. But ba'ushin is your endives. Various other vegetables, we don't really know what they are. You can use them when they're moist or a bit dry. But not when they are pickled. And not if they're overcooked, where they've disintegrated. But not when they're cooked. Because they join up for a kazais. For yotzin, you can fill your duty not only with these, also not with the leaves, but also with the stalks. And you can fulfill your duty with my vegetables brought from Haaretz, which you can't eat it because you don't know if you took mice or not. With Master Rishon, Shenit La Trumase, where the Truma was already taken, Master Sheni Mehekta, Shenifta, which have been redeemed. Now, types of vegetables you fulfill your duty Chovas Mara. We said, B'chazeres, Zuchasin, that is your chasa, that's your lettuce. But Oshin, Zutruk Simain. which they always translate as endives. But Batamcha, not your European endives, which is a sort of chicory, but it's a sort of British endives. But Batamcha is Gan Gidin. You don't really know. It's some sort of type of rubia or something. I don't know. Some close to the mint family, whatever. Chavina. Yasechali. Type of grass that goes near the date tree. I don't know. But Amaro is a general word. Yerek ma, any bitter vegetable. Upon a marsifin, and its color is sort of white, greenish white. V'yeshle saraf, and when you cut it, there's like a juice comes out of it. Now, which is chasa motag, it's sweet. Hareino kori moro ela motag, it's sweet. How can you fully duty with it? The whole idea of eating achilas moro, they made everything bitter. It doesn't come to that. The beginning of it is sweet. But so ma, when you leave it to grow, it sort of hardens. They did with chela when they went in, they were sweet. You live in the best of the land. And then after that, they made their lives misery. You can fulfill your duty whether it's wet or ben kamushin. Some say, I would like kamushin. You should not use it when it's dry. The Tanna Mishnah is bekelach with the stalk. Because the bitterness stays even when it's sort of dryish, and you fulfill your duty. Mandava, what is this avaloi kamushin? That is ba'alin, talking about the leaves, because otherwise they'd have no taste at all. Over here, Zayis kavush, a pickled olive, you can say the bracha it's like the bracha before you pickled it. Pickling is like cooking. So according to Rabbi Yochanan, you can say a bracha on cooking, the bracha that you say when it's raw as well. But Rabbi Yochanan, he says no. Yarok shalok, if it's very cooked, because the cooking changes the taste. You're losing the importance of the fruit. So there's machlekes in the view of Rabbi Yochanan, does cooking change the bracha or not? So our Messiah, the mission supports that when you cook them, it changes through the cooking. We said you can fulfill your duty with the wet or the dry. You can't use cooked ones. Now, if they're considered like they're still like they've never changed, then you should fulfill your duty with it. Why can't you fulfill your duty? The fact that you can't, see, pickling and cooking change it. It's not the same as it was before. And that's like Rabbi Yefes. That's why it changes. The bracha changes. But it could be Aravzar. Man Yoda Mishma ben Rav Yochanan Yos. Who knows? Who knows well what Rav Yochanan said? Rav Chib Abba or Rabbi Yom ben Yefes? Rav Chib Abba is the one. He was very careful of what Rav Yochanan said. So we should take the argument about Rav Yochanan, take Rav Chib Abba, not take the other side. But I've been Hadad also from the following. We see Rabbanan Ala Lebriyasa. They go to the mourners' meals. When Nasfin to Muslim Brachlan, they take these beans that take a lot of cooking. And they say bracha b'every adama, but to mercy now they're overcooked, and even so they say the hadama bracha, and that's like the opinion that cooking doesn't change the bracha. The in you're going to say that they're cooked tomorrow. I mean the chayra, and not like Ruchir Baba. He says shani. No, we can say no. It's different. The mitzvah eating mara might be different. Torah said it should be bitter, as it's eaten. It should be bitter. But we came in shashalkan, and once you cook these vegetables, batli marasa, the bitterness goes away. So even though the boiling doesn't change the importance of the vegetables, but you can't fulfill your duty with it tomorrow. Okay. So they had an argument in the view of Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yochanan, and it could be, there's no question. Olives, when you cook them, you usually eat it raw. Therefore, filu kavush, even when it's cooked, it's like what it was before. You say I ate. But yerek, a vegetable, which you don't eat raw, and now the cooking makes it edible. Once you cook it, it changes to be something new. It's not considered pri adama anymore. And you'll say shakon even olives? I don't know. Why not?
I don't think they're edible.
So what are we saying now? There are discussions as to what the right girsa is here.
I think it must be the other way.
Some say the other way. Some say when does it keep its bracha? When you're changing it to something that it becomes edible now.
That's olives.
Not when it was edible before.
That's vegetables. I think
That's, yeah. So there's a whole question whether the Bavli and Yerushalmi argue on this point. Some have a girsa, Zayis Adei She'ein Darka Lechol Chai. Because it's not the derech to eat it raw. That's the answer. So they're not eaten raw, they're eaten pickled, and that's when you say ha'etz. As opposed to the vegetables that Rabbi Yochanan Bar Yeves was talking about, they are better raw. So the cooking changes them and ruins the bracha to charcoal. Right? That's brought in the Bavli. It could be there's no argument from the Chachamim on the Tulmusin is Hadama, because you always eat them after cooking. Okay? So what we said here, Zayis, at least in the wording we've got, you'll eat it raw, according to this Gersa. Afilu Kavush Be'enahu, when it changes, becomes a yerek, you change it by cooking it. It's not considered Pri Hadama anymore. Okay. Do not, huh? Okay. Halacha Vav. Do not soak the bran. It's called animal food bran. In water for the chickens because it causes it to machmitz. Avol chaltin, put it in hot water. It doesn't come to chimot. So isha la tishra samosan. She should not soak this bran. That she should take in her hand to the bathhouse is to use as a soap really on her skin. She's using his bran. She can use it when it's dry. Don't chew wheat because on his wound because they cause chametz through the saliva and so on. Okay. Tani learned in the Rise from Shlomo Rabbi Yossi B'Shemavi. Ezohi Hameisa. What's the Misa? Nice and chamin the terch kamach. Hot water into flour. Sorry, where is this? Hamin the terch kamach. You make a dough. And what is chalita? That's kamach flour into hot water. The terch hamin. Now here, so if that's the case, if it's called chaluta. Hacha in our Mishnah, this chalita is permitted. It doesn't cause chametz. Bein chamin the terch mosan, bein mosan the terch hamin, whichever way around. So now we've learned you can't start chewing your wheat and putting it on a wound on Pesach because it causes chametz. And that is yisheyesh behen shamnunis, when it's got some sort of moisture over there on the wheat. But if they're parched and dry, then you can chew it and put it on a wound. It's not going to come to chimutz. Melugma is like a bandage with a medicine made of wheat. Shadisracha, and it's not even fitting for a dog. Istanutani, some say Zakuk Navai, you have to remove it. Istanutani, some say Inzodavai, you don't have to remove it. Madam Zodavai, one says you have to move it, Bishanis Hamsa V'achach Nisracha, where it became chametz first and then went bad. Madam Zodavai, you don't have to, Bishanisracha, it went bad, V'achach Nis Hamsa, and then it became chametz. So the time when it became chametz is not fitting for eating, therefore you are not chayav to remove it. Now, the Bavli, I think, makes no distinction here. It says, some say according to the Rabbin of the Rosh. Okay, Rakia. 1 second. I remember seeing something about it. I can't find it now. Okay. Whatever. Let's move on. Where are we? Halacha Zayin. Don't put flour into your charoises, into your mustard, because it will cause them to rise. It will rise. And if you put it, eat it straight away, because it will take a while to rise. Remeir forbids you to eat them. You cannot cook. Not with liquids, like fruit juice, you can smear on at the time of roasting, and sort of dip things at the time when you eat it, bahen, with various liquids. The water that the baker dips his hands in to cool down his hands when he's preparing the dough. Yishafchu, they should be poured away, because they have bits of dough inside that's fallen off the baker. Do not put flour into charoises or to mustard nasa, and if you did, eat it straight away. You shouldn't leave it a while because we'll come to Chametz. Rameh forbids you to eat it even straight away, Bnei Masha, because you'll definitely just delay. Now, don't cook your Korban Pesach with mashkin or meiperos. Ksiv, it says in Korban Pesach, don't eat it, no, voshel mavushel b'mayim. So don't eat it cooked. Eli ala b'mayim, cooked in water. V'nai l'rabo is shal mashkin. How do you know the liquids? Tavlo voshel mavushel. But it can't mock them. Anyway, it's cooked, so any liquids. Now, Ad Kadol, this is a source for eating Korban Pesach cooked in other liquids, Rabbi Akiva. And he always learns when the Torah has a double expression. He uses it for droshes and things. But Rabbi Ishmael, he doesn't use double expressions to tell you extra droshes. He says that's the way people speak. How does he know this applies even with cooking with other liquids? Tony Ishmael. Ishmael said, Kavachomer. Pesach mavushel from a kavachot mayim shenim mefigin taman. Water doesn't remove the taste of Korban Pesach, right? It doesn't bring its own taste in. It hasn't really got a taste. Nevertheless, atama we say that the Pesach's cooked in them also you can't eat it. Sham mashkin shemefigin taman. They give their own taste. They conjugate how much more so that the Korban Pesach should be forbidden if it's in these other liquids. Ein lashin matzah b'mashkin. Do not start making a dough of matzah in liquids apart from water. You can sort of smear it with other liquids after you prepared it. I remember I was with him in a boat. But I did start kneading their dough and in other liquids. They never said anything. Okay, we bring a brisa here. We do not need the matzah. Even the matzah on the first night, but in hot water, again, they will hold back the dough, and then it won't get able to become chametz. And you can't do it with warm water, because again it will cause it to be chametz. They hurry the process, and therefore you can use it in cold water. But we learned in the Mishnah that menachos, which come in a state of matzah, you can't call them to come chametz. You can knead them in warm water. You got it, should become chametz. So why isn't there this heter here? Rabbi Abi Rav Shlokish Tamad over there menachos adava masala kayanim. The baking of the menachos given to the kohanim. Kohanim's reasoning. I think we should say this again. The kohanim are super special, right? They are zoris. They're enthusiastic. They are energetic. Any other words I can think of? And the people guard it shouldn't become chametz. It is given to the women, and some of the women at least, perhaps, might be lazy. And we're worried the dough will rise through the warm water, which hurries the process. Therefore, they said, do not make matzahs in warm water. But still, the whole question doesn't start only about kohanim atzman. Okay, it's all very well we rely on their enthusiasm to guard the menachos. But what about baking matzahs? So we rely on their enthusiasm, they will guard the dough not to become chametz? Or maybe not. This question can be like we find elsewhere. Son of Zachariah Chasneder of Levi, he said, Nida, a menstruant woman, before she goes to the mikveh, chayfefes v'sareketh, she can brush her hair, and she has to brush her hair to undo all the knots and things. Kohenes, now a kohenes, she goes to the mikveh much more regularly because whenever she needs to have truma, she'll go much more regularly. So she's not a nida, but she's going for tahara. She doesn't have to check her hair to the same degree. But a nida kohenes chafes zarekas, a nida who's a kohenes, she does have to do all these things. Because all niddas have to do this. So even kohenes, not kohenes. But so here as well, the kohanim should not knead the matzah of Pesach in warm water. No, we shouldn't start making chilukim and differences between the matzahs. The water remnants from the baker. You You pour it where there is a flat area. It's like a flat area with cracks. Some say pour it on a slanty area. The one who says pour it on a flattish area with cracks. It was high up, and the water would just get absorbed into the various cracks. Ma'adam Rokim Katavras on a slant, Katavras Gadol. It was a big slant, and then again it will get absorbed in the ground before it reaches the ground. This is what he used to say to explain that the two brises are not contradicting one the other. If you soaked wheat or barley in water, this chamsu, if they become chametz, asur is they're forbidden. Loin is chamsu, if they haven't, mutarais, then they are permitted. Rabbi Yosef, he said, shara sa'irim, if you soak barley b'mayim, nisbaku, even they just crack a bit, radio asur is they're forbidden. But shroim b'chaymes, you soak them in vinegar, mutar is permitted, because chaymes soaked on the vinegar sort of holds them back. Rashma Rabbi Yitzchak, havele yayin kaisem, wine that was close to becoming chametz, and to ferment, as it were. He put barley in it to hurry up the process. The Shada Ravimi, and he asked Ravimi, do I have to get rid of it, bil chametz, because of the barley? Amalei says, so you have to remove it. That means he had date honey that was mixed beside us with flour. The Shada Ravimi asked Ravimi, do I need to remove it on Erev Pesach? He says, you do have to remove it. One of the household of Kirai, your jugs of oil in the wheat storehouse, and the oil was dripping on the wheat. He asked the Chachamim, is the oil machmis the wheat? I need to know on Erev Pesach. They said, Ezil Geroif min tuchteyen. Go and move the wheat from under the jugs and remove them because the oil has gone and caused them to become chametz. He passed him in and gabay with those jugs of cheres which have sort of a porridge in them the whole year. You fill them with water for 3 lots of 24 hours, and that way you permit them to be used during Pesach. Now we're talking about 2 types of chametz. Now they're not as severe as normal chametz, and there's no kores, but still you can't eat it. You can't have it in your domain. So there's 2 groups. There's a chametz mixture, that's chametz gomor mixed with other things, and you have chametz nugsha. That's chametz it's not fitting to eat at all. It's not mixed with anything else. Yeah, it's chametz nugsha. It's sort of hardened chametz. Let's see. The following, you would be over. You have to remove them on Pesach. You have to remove them from your house. Kutach habavli, the Babylonian porridge, v'shech hamodi, and this other drink made in media. V'chaymes hadaimi, and sort of edaim vinegar. V'zeitem hamizri, the Egyptian olive mixture, whatever it is. V'zuman shal tzabain. Now this is sort of bran water of the dyers, and the dough of the butchers, Kol shall suffering, which is something to do with the scribes. Rabbi Lezer, he says, after Shite Nashim, even the jewelry you should remove. Zaklal, Kashu hasn't been dug on anything made from grain, as is over Pesach. You're over on it on Pesach. As far as eating it, these things, what we mentioned, are only a warning, normal lav, there's no kores on eating them. The following year, and all those mentioned in the Mishnah is they're forbidden if they're made with water. They add crumbs of dough to it. You put in it flour of barley. It's like the vinegar of the people of Rome. Some say they used to have a sort of wine, which when the Churban came, and then the wine wasn't the same, and then the Romans started making a special wine after that point. Barishaina in the beginning, they did wine for purity, and a sachim for the libations, it would not go bad. Now, what did the people of Yehuda do when they wanted to make vinegar? They would have to put barley into the wine to cause it to become vinegar. And they would call it the vinegar of the Romans. Because that's how the Romans used to do it. So the Roman one was the chametz because of the barley in it. Zaytum HaMitzri is the liquid which is called zaytaya, made from a third flour of barley or wheat, a third saffron, and a third salt. Okay. Zimi shel saboin, the dye, duyai begabe kotzem. They put they sort of put bran water in this dye. Begin the yiklat tzibar to the wall should pick up the dye. Amilan shel tabachin amchim abba maybe melilais. You bring stalks, shlovil shlish, which do not grow a third. The koshon, you ground them into flour. You make them kachalas charia, like these other chalas. For nice and for gedera, you can put them in the pot. But I would killed in, and it becomes a nice food. The kolon shel safrin. It's something that the scribes used to use. Maybe it's like glue to put the books together or something. They do it in Egypt. They would use it with dough. Yeah? Okay. Oh, problems I have tashite nashim. Tashin avum nisani tani, some say tashite. Various cosmetics. Vistone tani, some say tipule. Various depositories. Is that the word? Depositories is something for removing. Depilatories. What is it? To remove hair? What do they call it? What's the right word? Depositories or depilatories. Whatever it is. Madam, the one said tipule. Koshken tashitin. How much more said the ornaments? Mandama tashitin. Those are forbidden. Tipule loy, but the others are not. Siv. Kamach masas loy Kol. The rabbis kutach babli. Sheikh Hamadi. All these other things. Shubaz hara. They have a love. I think we chorus. Eating chametz, but that's when there's chorus. But eating these other things, only a love. They asked him, here it says kol, and now with chorus, it says kol, yet hacha, here, in the first passage, ad marbe, you add kol, any mixture of chametz, this eating. But as far as people, at memait, you reduce the number, the mixture of chametz from chorus. You don't learn from kol to include it for chorus. Why does the word kol riboy as far as the isur, but not as far as the punishment? Rabbi Yaina answered back. He says they're both the shyness of riboy. Kan with onish chorus is riba, but eichlin. We're including more foods. The pasuk says anyone who eats chametz v'nechros never shahim Israel. The word kol is on the person who eats. So when you dash in the riboy, additional people who eat chametz get kores, right? Whereas kan with the isur riba v'nechalin, here with the isur riba v'nechalin, we're adding more. Oh, we're adding more on the people. The pasuk says kol machmeses le'zechel. On the word kol here is on the food that's being eaten. So we dash in a riboy to include other things to be forbidden to be eaten. Taruvas chametz. So the kol in kol machmetzes is going on a mixture of chametz to aser it. But as far as chorus, there's no riboy. Because the Torah says kol eichel chametz, not kol chametz, which is eaten. Because the kol in that pasuk is going on the people and not going on the chametz. So you cannot add that a mixture of chametz should be chorus. Hativon, they ask the kashavot, you can fill your duty with eating matzah, but matzah b'tu with seasoned matzah, sesame, even though it doesn't taste of grain, the majority is made of grain. So if that's the case, a mixture of chametz again, elu, these mixtures that we have in our Mishnah, there should be kares. Just like you can keep the mitzvah of eating matzah with matzah's got other things in, doesn't taste of grain. It's considered matzah as long as the flour is the majority. So there should be a kares on a mixture which has got other types of minim, which is considered chametz, as long as the mixture is majority. Amalai. Rav Yaina answered back, Shania here is different. It says lechem. With matzah it says lechem. You're fulfilling duty with matzah with anything which is considered lechem. A matzah which is seasoned is lechem. It's got mainly grain. You can fulfill your duty with it. So we learn chametz from matzah. You're not over on chametz unless it's something which is called lechem. a mixture of chametz. These mentioned in the Mishnah, although they're mainly chametz, but they're not called bread. So therefore they're not considered lechem, and therefore there's no clear kares on eating them. Rabbi Yosef asked about Tani, we've learned kol atzma and a kari lechem and a matzah. The only thing called lechem is matzah. It says shivas yom yitochal ala matzah. It's usually 7 days you eat matzahs lechem only. V'hachat yalev chametz b'matzah. Here you want to dash and chametz from matzah, right? Matzah is called lechem, but we don't find anywhere that the Torah calls chametz lechem. It's chametz or sa'ir. So there should be a chiyuv on chametz, even if it's not lechem. And furthermore, bin adol the tani will only yosu adam milechavasu b'rekik. You can use some sort of cake of baked matzah hashori, which is soaked in water. Though it breaks up, it's still called lechem. Or a rekik mabushel, some sort of cooked thing. Again, it's baked and then cooked in water. Shalai nimcha, it's not disintegrated. Layam, he only said you can fill it using matzah shreya cooked at a kol shalai nimcha, but it's not broken down. I'm nimcha lai. If it's broken down, you can't. On the other hand, chametz, but chametz, we're saying, himcha is chametz. If you broke it down, it becomes a liquid, and you drunk it down, chayav, you chayav kares, because swallowing it down is considered achila for kares. Now chametz is definitely not lechem, and yet you're chayav kares. So you see, even though matzah needs to be lechem, kares on chametz is even if it's not lechem, and that's not like Rav Yoina. My kadun. What is the reason that there's no kares on eating a mixture of chametz? Because the majority, which is in chametz, how is it different from chametz gomor? So 1 second. My kedud, what's the reason there's no kares on eating a mixture of chametz? The main thing is chametz. So how is it different from proper chametz? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Idi, ein chumutz chimutz baror. What does this mean? The mixture of it is not so clear like chametz gomor. It's more kal. It's not noticeable in the mixture. Okay. Even though the mixture, which is mainly chametz, is asman atera, there's no kares. It's like chametz nuksha. There's no chiyuv kares. Okay. All right. Mao, where are we now? Mao, what? Mao shiloka. 1 minute. That's what he said. Now, we've learned in the Mishnah of the Brisa, a mixture of chametz and chametz nuksha, included machmetz as lots of chayla, but they don't have kares. Mao sheyilka, do you get lashes on eating them, like every lav? Rav Yirmi, Rav Lazar, Rav Lav, Rav Lagish, Av Lilka said like you don't get lashes. The word kol here is to include things with this achila, but not for a punishment. The Tani we learned in a brayso. We're asked on this now. The Tani al chametz boror, chametz of grain without mixture, chayv kares. Are they rovine a mixture? So they go boy. You get malchus, but you're part from kares. And Rav said that the eruv, which is mentioned in the brayso, is a sior. It's like a dough which is not fully fermented. It's like chametz nuksha. And also a mixture of chametz, kutza chabavli, v'sheich hamoda, these other ones. Basically, what do you see? You get lashes on eating these things, not like Rav Lazar and Shimon Lakish. Oh, Bubakana, could be Rav La. He said, Tivdo, explain the brisa, chametz or matzah, with chametz and matzah, shenis arvu, which chametz and matzah, which got mixed up, basically, that they have one taste. The tam chametz is not botel. Therefore, we are not making in the mixture, one gets lashes. Yeah, so it's basically they sort of got mixed up together. They got mixed together into a mix of some kind. Reviews. Kashait al Hada. I asked on this answer of Rabbi Bun Bakana. Mana Kion. What are we talking about here? If the main part of this mixture is chametz, then it's proper chametz. And don't start being lenient to me. And if you eat it, chametz, kazais, you should be chayv kares for eating it, not lashes. If the majority of it is matzah, then the chametz in the mixture is batel in the rova matzah. And if you eat from the mixture of matzah, you should even fulfill your duty with it on Seder night. And definitely you shouldn't get lashes for eating it. You can explain tifto sheyesh by chametz. Look, there's a mixture, majority chametz, which is not batel. But there's no kazayis of chametz. So it's a mixture here. Let's say you got 1.5 olive worths, and you don't have a whole kazayis of chametz, but you got a majority of chametz. Right? The part of it is matzah. So you're not going to have a shir kazayis of chametz, but you're not going to get ashes for it. And the price is like the view of Rav Shimon Amar, that the shir is kol shehula malkus. If you even a small bit of isur achila and torah chayv malkus, and we don't say shir kares kazayis only for chiv kares, right? The shir kazayis is chiv kares, but even smaller the amount there's lashes. And the Bryce says if you ate a kazayis or more chametz gamo, chayv be'en or chayv kares, even if you ate a kazayis of chametz mixture, which hasn't got kazayis chametz, you're not chayv kares, only malkus. Okay. Now, what about chametz which is absorbed in a pot? Rav an earthenware pot that you cooked chametz in it before Pesach. Don't use it again, that pot, to cook the same sort of food until after Pesach. But to cook something else in the pot during Pesach, that's fine. Providing after you cooked that before Pesach, then shlosha tafshil, you cook 3 other foods which is not chametz. Then anyone says, well, wait a minute. You're saying, look, whatever you cooked before Pesach is batel in something else. Kachi batel amina. It should also be batel if you cook the same thing again. If the reason absorbed in the taste is batel after you cook 3 foods, and then you can cook in a kedera when it's not its min on Pesach, it should be mutter to cook also its same min on Pesach. So the Gemara answers, min ma'aver al mina le'asa. When you cook the same food, it rejuvenates the taste of the original food to start forbidding it. So even after it's cooked in the kedera, 3 tafshilin, you still can't cook its min on Pesach. You can't cook the same food on Pesach. He commanded to the grinders, he told the ones who are grinding wheat, don't put bags of flour on for Pesach, one or the others. They'll heat each other up and cause chametz. He would go to the grinders to watch over the grinding of the wheat and Pesach. Shouldn't come to chametz. He would the one who grinded the silver and the copper, he would grind for him the wheat. He told the grinders that you should put water, get a keli full of water in the measuring, that you measure. Move it around with the water 4 times to rinse it out from all the chametz that stuck to it. Now they used to put sacks of flour for Pesach on like a cold floor, so it shouldn't heat up again and become chametz. Rab once said, you can look these bags, put these bags on Pesach on moist grasses. You can't put it on moist earth, because again it will cause chametz. The other one changed it around the order. Even according to the one who said you can put it on the moist grass, is only belaitan when you pick the grasses for sheishas and malan after midday. Where already the dew is worn away from it, they don't have such moisture. But however, you're picking them beforehand, he says don't put the flour on it because we're worried it will take their moisture and become chametz. Okay. See where we're going here. I'm going to stop here, Rabbi Sai. Okay.